Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
When Darren and I were growing up on the farm, we had to work around augers, and granted the augers were a little smaller than what we're working with today. We had a lot of 4-inch augers back then, and I don't know how we ever got anything done, Darren, with those little augers. But Dad was always talking to us about safety with the augers. It was very dangerous to work around augers. And during our Farm Basics time today, we wanted to talk just a little about augers and about their counterpart, belt veyors.
Well, augers are certainly a nice invention, and to move grain and other materials, having the auger worked quite well for us. But you know, Brian, we run into situations like this fall where we've got really dry grain. You know, the corn was dry coming out of the field, the soybeans were dry coming out of the field, and augers just crack up too much of our grain.
Okay, so there are, for grain handling purposes, if farmers are concerned about cracking that grain, there are a few things that they can do with these augers. So basically, with the auger, there is metal flighting inside of it, and it's going to spin, and as it spins, it's going to move that grain up the auger. Well, anyway, the first thing that we always tell our people on the farm is you've got to run the auger full. The more full it is, the fewer cracks you're going to have. Secondly, there are some people that will actually put some bristle flighting, which would basically be nylon or some type of plastic material, on the outside of that flighting inside the auger. They can't move the grain as quickly or move as much grain, but it's much easier on the grain.
Well, and easier yet, Brian, would be to switch to the belt veyor. And a belt veyor is just that. It's a rubber belt conveyor. And it sometimes will have some little sections on it to hold grain, some little cups or something like that to hold the grain on it. Yeah, or baffles. And sometimes it won't. It just depends on what material you're trying to move as to what kind of pattern they'd put on the belt. But with the belt conveyor, you're not spinning that grain around and basically grinding it against the sides of an auger. It's just laying there on top of a belt, and you aren't going to crack up very much grain except for on the discharge end. Now on the discharge end, if you're running that belt conveyor pretty fast, it really slings that grain off the end. Now if you're going to sling it into something metal, like a lot of times you'll see at the end a metal chute, well, it just hits that metal at the end and cracks almost as bad as it does with an auger. So you have to be careful about what the end of that belt conveyor looks like. Now some will put some baffles on the end or some rubber on the end of it to try and lessen the force of the grain against the end of the conveyor. So there's a number of different ways you can do it. And you certainly could have no end on the conveyor and just sling it off the end and have it land on a pile of grain.
So you might say, it sounds like that belt conveyor is going to crack the grain a lot less. Why wouldn't everybody use a belt conveyor? Well, the main two reasons why are, number one, the belt conveyor takes a little bit more adjustment. You have to be kind of monitoring that a little bit, and you have to know what you're doing in order to adjust it. And secondly, it costs a little bit more than a traditional auger. Well, once again, we wanted to talk today a little about augers versus belt veyors. The safety on both has gotten a lot better over the years because of different safety mechanisms that they have on these machines. But they are still a little bit dangerous for farmers to work with. Farmers, we certainly encourage them to be careful around both augers and belt conveyors. Belt conveyors are a little bit easier on the grain, but they do cost a little bit more than traditional augers.
Well, choosing the right conveyor or auger certainly isn't going to help you control our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?